Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of a series of three Facebook Live, where we will explore what it takes to start engaging and socializing for people with disabilities. At some time, it represent specific obstacle and challenges. We're here with three guests. Georgia Bondi, which is the CEO of Well Adapt. Rachel Greenberg, who is a specialist in dating and coaching people with disabilities. And our friend and colleague, Marie Pontini, which is a fashionista and a bodybuilder who's been quite a friend to Nolu since the beginning. Nolu is an ecosystem of product and services that promotes emotional inclusion for people with disabilities. And of course, emotional inclusion includes the ability of having a social, personal, and intimate, fulfilling life. And without further ado, we'll go through several topics that we selected that we believe can be of help for someone who decides to start investigating and dating again. And each of our guests will, give points of view. And if you have any questions at the end of the session, or if you have a burning desire, by all means, you can ask. But we will keep 10 minutes at the end of the Facebook Live to answer the question. So the first thing we want to address is reflecting on the type of relationship and the partner we seek. How to go about understanding your needs and specifying in which direction you want to go. So let's start with Rachel in order. And what you think, please keep your comment, as we said, like wrapped up in 2-3 minutes so we can cover all the material today. So
yeah, so when I work with clients, one of the first things I talk with them about is the type of relationship they want, because there are so many different types, whether it is a romantic sexual relationship or just a companionship, and being able to specify not only what you're looking for in a relationship, but what you're looking for in a partner. So once you figure that out and you have the list of what you need, then you can go out and look for that person. Because one of the things I talk about a lot is, let's say you just want a companion and you don't want a sexual relationship. Well, there might be trouble if you go out into the dating world and you have a date with someone who wants a sexual relationship. So it's important to know what you want so you can be matched with other people who want the same thing.
Good point. What about you, Georgia?
Yeah, I agree with everything Rachel has said so far. I thought I'd talk a bit about like how to figure out what you want, because sometimes that's easier said than done. And sometimes I like to approach it by thinking about like things I know didn't work in the past, and then kind of drilling down to what maybe the opposite is, or what better might look like. Like I'd had partners in the past that really just did not understand music and creativity and thought it was kind of like a hobby, waste of time. So I knew that hurt, and that meant, okay, so I want somebody who respects the creative arts. And that went on my little list of things. So yeah, sometimes going with what you don't like will help you figure out what you do want.
Good point. Good point. What about you, Mary?
I think that Georgia has a very good point on this, because I go with the same thing. But for me, the first relationship that I had as a disabled person, it was a big, like a trial basically on them. Sorry for them, but I mean, but I realized that I also had to figure, what do I want in terms of help or in this relationship? Do I want a partner that leaves me completely independent and doesn't help me besides a regular normal help? Or do I want a partner that will also assist me? And what type of help do I want from that person? determining exactly the type of help we want is really an exercise in itself, because that's what happened. I remember having a partner and telling him, no, I don't want you to push me inside when we're inside. And then we get inside the bus. So we were outside. He was pushing me. But as soon as we got in the bus, I'm like, no, don't touch me. And he's like, yeah, but when do you want me to touch you? And I was like, I don't know. So you have to think those things so that you're not gonna burn necessarily your first ones, your first meeting, or the first people that you're gonna meet. But yeah, so to see, because for example, also let's say for a bath, or my needs when I'm in bedridden, do I want someone that will assist me, or do I want my personal assistant personal care assistant with me, but my partner is my partner and I don't want them to have anything to do with that, So I think it's also important to figure that out.
Good point, and I think it's a concern for a lot of people with disabilities, where capacity are of it can be also fluctuating. You can start a relationship at a certain level, and depending on the type of of disability, could change, it could get better. But being clear about it, I think that one of the objective before you start is at least to know where you start from. To say, okay, this is like the basis of what I want to express as not always like deal breaker and non-negotiable, but saying, listen, this is what I would prefer, or this is what I want. And when a disability is even much more crucial, to be clear about it, because it impacts, so much. So the other point, which I think for many people with disabilities and the people we work with, what they express to us, is the famous question: how do you prepare your network and your support system that has as much for good, bad, or indifferent, good intention of helping and sometimes deciding for the people, but how do you get them prepared that this is where you want to go, and to make them on board where and what you want. So maybe we'll start with Georgia on this one.
Sure. So I think in my mind, one of the most important things is to decide what boundaries you want to set before you even, start to share the information. Boundaries looking like things like, if I tell you I want to go on a date and you immediately start researching the person and double checking that you think they're okay, I won't tell you again. So like that's a boundary, rather than a rule, which would be something like, don't research my dates, which is slightly different. It's like what you decide you're going to do. And then when you go to talk to your support network about like dating or whatever kind of relationship you're planning on forming, you know exactly what you don't want from them and what you're going to do if they don't, do as feels right for you. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things for me in my mind.
Good point. Continuing with maybe Mary on this one.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, Georgia, that it's very important, because the family, sometimes they want to help, or even close friends, let's say they want to help, like you mentioned, Catherine, and it's not necessarily going to be a real help. They may see it as it might be dangerous for you, or there are some risks, especially some disabilities that affect more the cognitive part. How much are we, like for myself, I have a lot of cognitive impairment. So I need to be safe at the same time with who I am with, and what type of relation. But if we go back to the type of relationship and all this, first you have your boundaries also with the people. But if you can show them or explain to them, let's say you want someone to be very close to you. Let's say you have a friend and you want to tell them everything about everything, which is okay too. Then show them that you know what you're doing. Basically, you know the type of relationship you're looking for. You know the type of person you're looking for. Like you have a structure of what you're going in and where you're going through with it. So I think that's good. It may be sometimes it may be still good that people meet your let's say, a new partner meet your network, so that they can see. But I would say don't take necessarily their point of view. Follow what you see, but at the same time, maybe to reassure your friends, but also to have another opinion on for yourself. Is the people that you met seem to be trustworthy and safe for you to be with them? Sometimes we don't see those things, so it may be nice to listen to what they have to say, but not necessarily take their advice, but just, yeah.
Be the judge.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you. Good point. Very good point. Like to extend on that, Rachel?
Yeah, so I think what you said is so valuable is boundaries, how much you want your loved ones to be involved in the process, whether it's not at all, a little bit, medium, or completely, and being able to then be able to self-advocate for yourself. Because a lot of the times, unfortunately, in this community, people with disabilities are viewed as helpless, and that is absolutely so far from the truth. So people with disabilities to be able to self-advocate and say, I am able to do this. I appreciate your offer of help, but I can do this. And also self-advocate for the help that they do need. Like, I'd appreciate if you would help me with this, but I actually don't need help with that. So it's really, setting the boundaries and self-advocating for the boundaries that you want in a kind and respectful manner.
Very good point. I think that the boundaries are at the core of having relationship and making our surrounding help, family, and friends understand. And I really like, what Mary was saying about, and it ties into the first question. If you take the time to reflect on what you want and how you want to go about it, it definitely resonate differently with the people around you, as it's not something you're like blindly jumping into, but a careful analysis. But sometimes expressing those needs are not easy for a lot of people with disabilities of all sorts, because it's used to be discarded by by people around, by the medical establishment, that don't view intimate and sexual needs as something prioritary on the list of things they want to address. So learning to advocate for yourself and voice your need is already something quite impactful, that may or may not trigger the help that you want, but at least you express your need. So the other one is tying into that, and some of the comment that you said about the people that view more of the risk involved in having a relationship than the benefit for the emotional well-being of a person. So prioritizing mental health for ourselves and others, and being able to address the fears and the overly anguished parents that could look at their growing up adult children who wants to explore a little bit. So let's start maybe with Mary. Have you had that experience with your family when you express and when you wanted to explore your relationship and sexual life?
Well, I would say yes, I know, because I don't really have a family, but
Okay.
still, if I would look, let's say, for my friends, which I have a friend that is like my family.
Okay.
So we're really, really close, and her family is really like mine. I would say, of course, I'm very independent on that side. I have a past where I only had fuck friends, where I only had sexual partners, and I didn't want a romantic relationship. Now it's a little bit the opposite. Not necessarily the opposite, but I want a relationship, a romantic relationship. I think it is very important to have, like we mentioned the network, but like to make sure that for our mental health and like we mentioned for the others as well, but look for us first, I think. It is because we're gonna have those fears, and to have a possibility to express it. We may not want to overwhelm the person, that the new partner, with those things, which shouldn't, I think, because it's your problem. It's let's say, but maybe have a therapist, have some help, so that those people, you can address it with them. It's not your friends either. It's not a random help, but you have psychologists or social worker or whatever therapist that you can talk to and address those things, so you can work it. I don't think it's always necessary. I think it's good to work on it while you have a relation, while you start a relation. You can do it before, but I don't think you have to be ready to start a relationship. I think because when you're going to start, though the relationship itself, you're going to face new challenges that you won't necessarily know how to address them. So having someone as you go through, having a therapist as you go through the new relationship may help you to face those things. Your fear may be legitimate, but also it's may link with past or whatever, but it is your personal mental issues that I wouldn't bring in a new relation, basically.
Good point. How about you, Rachel?
That really resonated with me. So there was a point in my life where I wanted a relationship so badly, but I realized I was not in the headspace to be in a relationship, because a relationship is give and take. And I was at the point where I needed someone to just take care of me. So it's really having the person question why they want to be in a relationship, if it's the right time, if the reasons are healthy, and also to say, like, are you doing this to build your confidence? We want to make sure that people are going in for the right reasons. That being said, what Marie said that was so true is that there is no real like perfect time to go into a relationship. There's like, when I met my partner, I was using every single source possible to meet someone. I was on every app, every website. I was even using matchmakers who were matching me with people all over the country. And I was convinced if I did not do this, I would be alone. And one day he walked into a trivia night and there he was. So, the universe is extremely funny, but I do think that in order to have a healthy relationship, you need to be okay with yourself and be able to take care. And we're not perfect. We all have issues, but be able to handle our own issues and not use the other person as a person to take care of us. Because again, it needs to be 50-50.
Good point. Good point. And Georgia, you want to continue?
Yeah, I thought I'd carry on with what you were saying, Rachel, because you make a very good point. Like, you do need to be okay within yourself before you bring someone else in. But then, like, as we said, we know where that line is. Like, being ready is not really a thing. So it's like trying to figure out that balance. And I myself, I took a really long gap from dating for lots of reasons. But one of them was that I have a genetic condition, but it didn't start getting like intense until I was at uni. So I kind of, my mobility was really poor at the time, and I didn't know how to handle it. So I just didn't date anyone for years, for like 3 years or something. And when I finally came back to dating, all of the mental health troubles that I thought I'd solved in the intervening space, they just came back because I hadn't applied them like in a relationship. And I was like, oh my goodness, I thought this was done. Like I'm self-love now. It's all fine. But no, it doesn't work like that. So I think I had to kind of reassess and look at the things, well, like, what are the things that I was finding difficult mental health wise before I was doing a relationship, and just keep an eye on those, because they do, when you enter into any kind of relationship, be it a friendship or dating or just sleeping with someone, they tend to pop up a little bit more, especially things like low self-esteem or so I ended up kind of writing this list of things I knew triggered me, so that I was a little bit accountable to myself for sticking with people who weren't perhaps very nice to me because I was triggered in terms of self-esteem. So I was just I'm saying this like it was very well organized. It was not well organized, but like slowly in fits and starts, I tried to like recognize when my mental health was getting in the way of me assessing who is a partner that I actually want, rather than just somebody who likes me. And I'm like, oh yeah, you like me, let's just do it, which is
I'd love to
really...
add to that. That was brilliantly said. And I think it's also about finding a partner that will be open and honest with you when you're putting too much on them. Basically, you know, if you're struggling with anxiety or OCD or depression, and instead of using coping skills where there's so many coping skills, obviously it's easier said than done. Instead of using those coping skills, putting it on your partner, and that's a large weight to carry. So it's important to be with a partner who will be able to say candidly, hey, you know, I know you're struggling right now, but this is a little bit too much for me. Is there any way you could do A, B, C, or D, you know, of the coping skills you've mentioned to me that you use, so you can kind of take a little bit of the weight off of me and handle it yourself? And I think that open communication is so important.
Good point. Thank you for adding. Was there anything else you wanted to address with, you know, like getting your list ready and you know, watching for, you know, the triggers? Because I think that, like you said, it's you can mentally prepare yourself to the triggers, but it's when you are confronted with, you know, what's happening within the relationship that they become more acute.
I think one aspect that is important there, because it's going to bring back some stuff, is also to be conscious, to have conscience that your inner ablaze, how you face your own disability and how you deal with it. Are you faking it, or are you really comfortable with it? And I think it's something that you should be able to deal with, and that you're not going to put on the other person, like Rachel mentioned. But I mean, in terms of your relation with your disability, how do you accept it, how much you accept it, and what part you don't accept, or, you know, like stuff like that. That would be important. But also, because it's going to trigger other stuff, like, let's say, your self-esteem, you may consider, okay, at that moment, to have a partner that will control you. It is very present with people with disability that people who want to date us, they will tend to be very controlling. They may, I mean, you know, but there is a portion of people that assume that because that person is disabled, I will be able to control them. No, not necessarily. And I think you have to, you have to show them, you know, but to be aware of that and have that safety in your mind, because it is your safety that is at play, but also your esteem and all this, because they can start to play with your mental health, play with your esteem, and put you in a hole where you're going to end up accepting those things, accepting being pushed down, and accepting being seen as something less than what you are, or whatever, you know. So to see with the disability, how much it affects your life, how much it affects your well-being and your mental health and your relation with it, and to have that conscience so that you don't let someone else, a new partner, come and abuse a little bit from that leaks, or that from those little lower points that you don't control yet, let's say. So Georgia, you had a good point to have like a list, and being conscious that, yes, I have a disability, but doesn't mean that I'm less than something. And yes, we are equal in the couple, and no, he doesn't take care of me, and I'm not a weight that he must carry, you know, like, so to have those things and remind them if you're not yet okay with it already, if you didn't go through those things already. But even if you did go through, like you said, I think even when we think that we're fine with it, as soon as we meet someone,
Exactly.
you don't know. Sometimes you're going to be very good at triggering a lot of stuff, so you don't know.
That's it.
So
Yeah,
having
thank you. Yeah, so much because it's gonna tie in pretty well with our next topic. But before we get to it, which is like internalizing ableism and how, like it plays a part in how we enter into a relationship. What you said at the beginning, Mary, in regards to finding the help, not just because one of the issue with the family of people with disabilities is, first of all, they're not necessarily expert in the field of, emotional inclusion and relationship. And they often view their responsibility in terms of physical accessibilities, like housing and things like this. But when it comes to being able to assist, with that part of the development of their sister, brother, children, uh, they're at loss with how to address it. So I think that finding a resource, somebody that can at some point be there for validation or invalidation of what's going on. So this is one of the reasons at Nolu we are offering specialists, that not only, for example, we have sex therapists, but they're not formed, they're not trained in university to understand the specific issues that people with disabilities face. So we educate them and we train them. So at least when they consult with our users, they have that other expertise to do it properly, because it is the same. Often when we discuss those topics, we realize that it's the same for everybody, but yet it's not the same depending of so many different type of disabilities. And this component of adding this internalizing of what you should be and how, like society view you, um, is um, is something on its own, and it contributes, to the fear of the family, what you've been saying, because there is a little bit of, possibility that someone will be manipulative and this and that. So the more prepared with that, the better it is. So if we go through the actual title of the next question is internalized ableism, challenging societal norms and addressing self-limiting belief. And this is really at the core of what Mary started to talk about. So let's go with Georgia to start on this one.
Yeah, it is such a big thing with disability, because there's so much noise in society about disability and sex just not going together. So particularly when you're looking for a sexual relationship, there can be so much fear from other people that kind of enters your head. Like I'm doing a part-time PhD looking at disability and sex, and like the statistics for how little people give sex ed to disabled people compared to the rest of the population is just ridiculous. And I know certainly when I started to, I guess, become more disabled, however you want to put it, I was really scared of what people would think of my body, whether I, was going to be able to move in the way that I was supposed to move in sexual relationships and things like that. And it took a really long time for me to just figure out that sex isn't one thing. It's not one thing with one type of person and one type of body, right? So I needed to understand that if I was thinking of a sexual relationship that way, I was thinking real boring. Like you can make it a lot more fun by not being so like uptight about what it's supposed to look like, how it's supposed to feel, what the body should look like, how it should act. So I think I really needed to like open up my head about what is a relationship, like what do they look like, what are the roles that people do, just kind of scrap the things I'd been told and just try to make it up myself. Like decide like what bits of friendships do I like? What bits of like physical intimacy do I like? Like what do I want to keep? What do I want to throw out? And try to craft it myself based on my body and what it likes, not just what can it do and what can it not do. What does it like? And I think when I stopped trying to think about relationships and sex in the way that I'd been raised to think about it, my whole world opened up, and it was just so so helpful to not be in that, very, very closed-minded view of sex and relationships. That wasn't very helpful for me.
No, thank you so much.
That's a good point, especially with the sex. I mean, right now we all women's talking, but I know that men, unfortunately, when they have a disability, if let's say they are not able to have a regular erection, let's say, they will consider that they have lost everything.
Yeah.
While at the same time, most of women don't care about it. Because you may have a hand that will do way better and you don't even know yet. So there are so many, many, many ways that a man, any partners can satisfy each other that are beyond their regular, what we know. Yes, maybe for some, like for me, the regular act of penetration, let's say, was important. But I just had a surgery and yeah, you learn there's stuff that change. So you have to adapt to it, And I think you see, like that's one of the first things that I realized why right now for me I'm not ready to date, because I need to face that new thing now, and how I'm gonna sit for myself even. So I think that's important, but not to put everything on the case because of your disability. Like excusing because of your disability. Oh, they're not gonna like this because I'm disabled. I have some people, they like guys. They're gonna be, oh, there's no women interested because I cannot have a regular penetrate sexual act. Well, this is in your mind. I'm sorry, and many see a wheelchair as cutting their balls or cutting their masculinity.
Yeah.
No, no. It has nothing to do with it. I know guys, okay, like right now I'm thinking about bodybuilders, but still any guys. I know guys, they are models in wheelchair users. Others are bodybuilders, wheelchair users. And I'm sorry, but they have completely are their masculinity and their sexiness and everything they need, to be attractive. So it's not the case. It's not true. It's how you see yourself and your inner ableism and how you put excuses on the disability itself. So when you clarify those things for yourself, I think that's important, to be honest and to be real. It's not there's nobody that wants this or nobody will want that. No, it's about you. How do you see yourself? What do you see yourself able to do? I'm not going to go very far in this, but I want to say, especially for men, there's always going to be a woman or a partner, whatever type of partner, that will be interested in someone and they're going to see beyond the wheelchair. Some women, sometimes they may like to play the nurse, let's say, and will appreciate to take care of you because you're not threatening. Like see that kind of example on the opposite of the person that's going to be, oh, I'm not masculine enough because I have a wheelchair. Yeah, but you're not threatening also for someone who was traumatized in different ways. So, to see that, no, you're actually a disability may be an advantage and may be good. So stop with those things. You may not going to beat her up and maybe that's what she went through. So, like, to be real with this, of how you see yourself first. It's like I like to tell that because like I have MS also, and a lot of people with MS, it's gonna degenerate gradually, and they're gonna lose eventually that part. For guys, they not most of the time, unfortunately, they may not be able to have an erection, and It's like, guys, they having practice in advance. Because most of the men, when they're gonna get to a certain age, they won't be able anyway. So they're just giving you some advance on those that are the same age than you, but when you're gonna get old, you're gonna have much more practice than them. So that's it. If I know those questions pop out, are you able to have an erection? Are you able to do this? If you decide that you want to answer those questions, I would say, well, I'm able to please and my partner completely. That's it. That's what they need to know. And when we start a relationship, disability or not, we adapt. The first sexual relation is not always great because we need to learn the body of the other person, what they like, how they react. We adapt completely, and it has nothing to do with disability. This is like if you think about like someone who doesn't have a disability and go in a relationship, everyone, any new relationship, even if you had so many, you will have to adapt to this new person. So it is the same thing. You will adapt, and you don't need to throw them all the details of what you can do and cannot do and could do but could not do eventually. And okay, but adapt now, and gradually you're gonna adapt together over time. Let them the space to get in the bubble of your body and yourself, your intimacy, so that they can adapt to it. You don't need to, of course, communicating is very important, but you don't need to put the barriers already, like boundaries, like close, so that they don't enter at all, because you want to tell them in advance or make sure that they know in advance. Or you will adapt. Everybody will adapt. So if they're really interested into you and all this, they will just adapt to it and go through. And when comes the time to talk about what you prefer, how you work, whatever, how you go through with your sexuality, how you see things, it is not because of disability. Yes, it's going to be different because of disability, but that part should be there with any relationship. You're going to get there eventually anyway, where you're going to discuss those things and communicate them. So I think not to put like a barrier on our own already in advance, be like, oh my God, no, I don't think someone would like a body like this or would do like that. Or, dude, let them decide, okay? That's it. If they like you, they're gonna like you. So
Yeah, very good point, because I think what you're talking about is the overwhelming self-doubt of many men when it comes to their own masculinity. And it's not unique to people, to men with disabilities. I think it's like, they have a burden of performance that it is a little bit overrated, if that's what you're saying. And I think that this being ready, this is all of what we're talking about today, is how to make yourself ready and deal with the self-doubt and deal with all this, and understanding the elastic of being ready, being overly ready, and not being able to jump and try. And it's in the trying often that we experience thing. And by all means, like, have the faith that something magical can happen if it has to happen. If not, it's an encounter. But this mindset, that's something that was said at some point, like, it's the proper mindset to be vulnerable at the same time as to be mindful of where you want to go, and it's those two. It's a mindset of understanding, where you want to go and how you want to go, and everything we said so far, is leading to helping people try find, after years sometimes of abstinence, because the doubts, and like we were talking about, there's many type of disabilities that are not stable in a sense, like, different manifestation, different symptoms come and go, like degenerate, like Francois, the co-founder, had multiple sclerosis, progressive. So everything was like, it's most multiple sclerosis patients have bouts of symptoms. But when in his case, he lost a little bit all the time and had to constantly readjust himself to, okay, now this is not working. Okay, now this is going, and it was a continuous, I wouldn't say battle, because at the end of his life he was at peace and serene with this, constant progression. But it was not easy in the beginning, thinking that this works, and then, so especially for a man, we had those many conversations, and I know Mary knew him very well, and François to deal with that, and the understanding that everything is not defined, like Mary was saying about performance. There's so many other things to explore. So we didn't hear Rachel on this topic. So what about you? What
Ableism is something that we all have the responsibility to speak out about. I would say I would have considered myself somewhat of an ableist, not knowing, until I started watching. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, and if you're not, I urge you to look them up. Swarmy and Grubbs. It is an interabled couple who chronicle their lives on YouTube, to basically show that someone with a severe physical condition and someone that does not have a disability can be in a relationship together. And they discuss topics as simple as, how they live their lives, to intimacy. And once I started watching that, I realized, first off, sex and passion and love is different for everyone. So why are we, so confused about how it exists for people with disabilities? How are they so different than us that, that sex seems so impossible for some people? So I urge people to educate themselves about the fact that, things may be different, but they exist, and that people with disabilities have desires and have wants and have dreams that are similar to people without disabilities, and that we need to support these people to fulfill those dreams and to openly say that we believe in you and we know that you're no different than us. Because the fact of the matter is, disability or not, label or not, we all have something that we, struggle with. It could be low self-esteem. It could be mental health. It could be trauma. It could be a genetic condition. It could be a health condition. Everyone has something. But because of disability encompassing these labels that sound so severe and so scary, we almost think like, oh, they don't need to learn about sex. What is sex going to do for them? They don't need to learn about that. I recently took a sexual education course for people with disabilities, and the curriculum was so extensive and impressive. And I was just so, I guess, enlightened with how the world needs to change its view, instead of seeing people with disabilities as helpless individuals who aren't able to do things like us.
Yeah.
Instead, to see them as individuals and human beings who do things differently, just as we do things differently. So it's about viewing people as like an organic human being, not, the girl in the wheelchair, but here's what her name is, or, not the person with autism, but here's the person and that's their name. And knowing that we can all live together and educate one another and accept one another, and show people that, we support them in their decision making, that we're there to assist them in their decision making if they want the help.
Exactly.
And to kind of decrease our ignorance, because disability, has like the services have become so much better, but there is still that ignorance. And the biggest ignorance is regarding sex. And sex is a big part of life for most people. So we need to do our job and our duty to educate people around us like, hey, just so you know, like that person over there could have a sex life if they wanted. And, you know, the person very well may ask, how is that possible? And for us to explain to them, because I'd rather have someone ask me questions about how something is possible than someone just stare and gawk and assume. We need to take those questions, accept them, and say, you know what? I'd rather answer these questions so you are more well-informed than for you to look at people with disabilities and think that they are disabled.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Especially with the sex therapist. Sorry,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I want to
Okay.
get just to that part, because for me, it's a big frustration when I realized in Montreal, we're like a few millions people, and 25% of people are disabled. Okay. So
Really?
when you think about, yeah, in the population everywhere,
Wow.
well,
It's the same in the
North
States. Yeah.
America, it's 25% of people who are disabled, every type of disability.
Mhm.
So we're not a minority. We are the
Wow.
biggest majority, actually,
I
you
know.
know? So anyway, but we have one in Montreal, one sexual therapist who, well, now we have two, but I mean,
Well,
that
we
is
have,
that
like actually we have three because there's two that there's we'll talk about
in the
that, but
centers.
that's one of our
Okay.
mandates.
It's starting to develop.
Yeah,
But back then, not so long ago, there was only one that
yeah,
would be available for disabled people to meet and to get help from. And her first advice that she would give was, you don't need to have a regular sexual life. So,
well,
and
that's
I have a friend that just had a course about as a sexual therapist, and like she said, it was like 20 minutes on disability, and that's it. You know, well, it can be so much more. Like Rachel, you mentioned, you had a complete whole course about it, so it can
Yeah.
be taught. But it's so easy for disabled people to feel that they don't deserve or need or whatever because there are absolutely no resources. That's why for me, Nolu was a big like, wow, because finally it's going to be available and it's available online. It's available for anywhere in the world, anyone. Um, because we do need it. I'm sorry. Mental health, physical health, sexual health, it's all at the same level. Everybody
exactly.
needs it at some level. And whatever your sexuality goes because you're asexual and you prefer just a hug or your intimacy go differently. This is any type of humans.
Yeah.
So that's what it is, you know, but you still need a sexual health.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And it's very important for ourselves to advocate for ourselves, to have those services, to take those services. I know when we're going to consult them, most of the time they're going to reject your case. They're not going to take you because they're like, I don't know what I can tell you and I don't know what I can do for you. Okay. But to push on those things, because like you mentioned first with Catherine, with Nolu, it exists. Those
mm,
resources are finally becoming available. And also, like Rachel, you mentioned, it exists. There are courses. So if you're a sexual therapist and you know nothing about it, and it's like a big mystery, and you think like, well, you know, sexuality can be just different, but it doesn't have to be. No, it has to be. You just need to learn about it and look
that's
with
it.
Rachel and learn from it. Learn those courses do exist, you know.
It's fantastic, really, Mary, that you're talking about that because Nolu has a 1 day course specifically designed
Oh,
for
wonderful.
sex therapists. Yeah, and we also give the same course to people that work in medical establishment and in hosting, where residents, where people with disability reside. So those courses are available. I can tell you, Mary, that in the last year, there's 15, if maybe 20 of them that have been sent aware, that have been through the course. And we have 3 sex therapists that will work with the new, and be available to our users and members and customers. So the way NALU is looking at promotional inclusion, it includes the understanding that all of the people that work with and around people with disability have to understand the importance of having access to an emotional and sexual, intimate life for people with disabilities. So we work with medical establishment, we work with professional, and we made available the application where people can meet in safety in without having to fear about disclosing, because it's a safe and inclusive act, like Mary was saying. But very shortly, we'll have those sex therapists available within the application. So one of the big difficulty for sex therapists also to cater to your needs is most of them are practicing in building that may not be accessible. So there's there's growth that has been made in terms of physical accessibility, but it's not everywhere. So all of this compound to really not making this service available. And in Quebec, the professional order of sexologists, so to speak, they have a mandate to answer the need of all the Quebec population. And when we say all the population, it's all the population.
All.
And 25% of that population is composed of people with disabilities, and they have a responsibility to be able to answer to your needs. So step by step, by using all of our means of intervention and transformation, because as we discussed today, this topic is one that has to be addressed from all angles. If we do one thing, it's not enough. If we do another thing, so this is our mandate. This is what we want to do, what we want to achieve with events like we have today. What is very important is giving the voice to people with disabilities about what they want, what they need, getting the conversation going about the issues of having access to a sexual, to an intimate, to an emotional relationship. And step by step, we're bringing the awareness. And today we started 3 years ago, and already, some people are connecting with NOLU that we never knew, that say, oh, by the way, a social worker connected with us this morning saying, I'm working with this couple at home, and one of the person has a disability, physical disability. She has pain, but they still want to have intimate relationship. Can you help us? I mean, this is music to my ear, because it means that the message that it is possible and that there is help available, and that finally this is addressed as something of meaning for the community is happening step by step. So was there any question to the sit-in, or do you have any question to add?
I do have questions, but I don't know if they'll be answered in 4 minutes. But I don't know if you guys would have any practical methods that individuals can use to identify and challenge their own internalized ableism when seeking romantic connection.
The last part of the question, I'm not sure if we understood it correctly.
Okay, if there are any practical methods that individuals can use to identify and challenge their own internalized ableism when seeking out romantic connection.
Georgia.
Yeah, so I actually have, and I wish I could point you towards the website, but I think it's useful to have a list of ways internalized ableism usually manifests and the kinds of stories you tell yourself about it. So lots of common ones are, I'm a burden, or I'm lazy, or things like that, or I'm not likable. Those are very common. And to kind of have a list of them and think about, what stories do you tell yourself about yourself? And once you have that, you start to notice in little places where you've started telling that story to yourself. Like maybe it's, you don't ask for help when you need it. And the little voice in your head is telling you, well, it's because I'm a burden already, so I can't ask again. But I think it takes a lot of like writing a list of all the ways it manifests, writing a list of all the ways those things look for you, and then trying to just see them as they're happening. Maybe even have an accountability buddy who knows you and who you trust to say, hey, like, why don't you want help there? Like, is that because of the story you're telling yourself? Stuff like that, I think.
Good one. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we're almost done. I would like to ask our guest in a short 30-second what you want to leave our participant today. I just want to say also that there's going to be a second Facebook Live on the topic of how to bring the best conditions possible to wanting to date. So, Mary was, saying like, when you use dating apps, or Rachel and so on. So how those tools are really helpful, because a lot of people, they say, oh, I open an account, I do this, I do that, and they don't really engage themselves into bringing the best and really connecting and really trying to connect. Like they do one step and then they retreat back into all the ableism about like, well, nobody's going to look at my picture and stuff like that. So this is going to be a very interesting one that will work on that. And the last one, the third one, will be about navigating the ups and downs. Because it's not true that you open, like Rachel was saying it, she was on all the app and all the this and all the that, and it takes time. It takes trying and error and all of that. So that's not easy to understand. So to wrap it up quickly, ladies, starting with Rachel, 30-second, what today brought to you and what you want to leave to the viewers.
Yeah, for people to open their eyes and open their minds that people with disabilities have the same needs, wants, desires, and dreams as people without disabilities. And all I imagine they would ask is for them to support that and to not discount them.
Good one. Thank you. Georgia?
I think it's something I was thinking when we were talking about sex and disability. And it's just that often disabled people are better communicators in terms of like what they want or what they need for their body. And sex is most of the time, if not 100% of the time, better with better communication. So disabled people, in my opinion, have much more fulfilling sex lives than non-disabled people in a lot of cases. Obviously not in every case, but in a lot of them.
Good point. Yeah. Mary?
I would say for the people who wants to meet, go ahead. Like I would say you have a right to want to be in a relationship. You deserve to be in a relationship if that's what you want. As a human being, right there, we have an intrinsic value. Whatever we want to look with the society look like as a performance or the body looks or whatever those things, as a human being, you deserve and you are worth to have a relationship of love or with someone. So first of all, make sure you have that mindset. Make sure you sit for yourself. And as you go through with it, I would say therapy. Have a therapist, because I know it looks like, oh my God. Yes. Have a therapist so you can tell them everything. You can learn. They're going to be straight to you. They're going to tell you, you are being ableist when you do this and when you do that, those patterns and everything. So anyone should have a therapist, like disabled or not. But if you're disabled, then you have all those things, like you're unsure and uncertainties and everything. You're human. That's normal. Have a therapist so you can drop it on them and learn, and as you progress with your relationship, so it doesn't affect necessarily the relationship. But everybody is worth it. And it is worth the effort.
Yes.
I know a lot of people, they're like, yeah, but I'm good in my bed and I'm at peace at least and nobody bothers me. And, it's easier that way. No, it is easier. Yes, that's my case for many years. But it's still worth to have someone next to us and share pieces of life. So it's good to jump the why not.
Exactly. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you, sharing with us from all perspective, experience, expertise, knowledge, understanding of the condition and of this issue. I'm looking forward to our next session. Maybe we'll try to find a guy to join us and have his point of view. And thank you so much again. See you next time. And if everybody has questions, you can go on our Facebook page. There's like the connection to our website. You can find a lot of information, and we'll keep posting our activities as we go. So thank you so much, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.